Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and a very warm welcome to the latest episode. It's Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 2026. We are actually in March and I am so excited about it. It feels really good. I think there's something very psychological about the shift from February into March, and somehow everything feels completely different. I really, really don't like February. And it's been an absolutely beautiful day today in the weather. It's been dry, sunny. There are signs of spring absolutely everywhere. The snowdrops are over, I think, mostly around me, but the daffodils are in full flow, and they're just so gorgeous. And everything is growing really well on the plot. I've been walking around a lot, and even my phlox, which I still haven't got in the ground yet, that is just literally in a big heap on the floor. That's doing really well. And also a willow, which I thought was completely dead, but it turns out that it's not. And also, the great news is that I have finally got round to cleaning the greenhouse and sorted out the shelving. So that is wonderful. Now, obviously, we woke up on Saturday and there's all of this crazy stuff going on in the Middle East. And this is not a politics show, so I'm not going to talk about it, but we're going to have to wait and see what the ripples of that are in terms of inflation and pricing and all sorts of other stuff. Never mind all of the awfulness that happens out there, which is just dreadful. Anyway, I have realized what is wrong with me at the moment. As you know, I was blaming my hormones last week for just really, really feeling out of sorts. And actually, I think I've realized in the last 2 days that I'm having a full on midlife crisis. I want to get on a plane. I want to buy a sports car, get a haircut, in fact, cut all of my hair off. Then I'm like, no, I want to get hair extensions. I need an eyelid lift. I want to, I don't know, become a secret agent. I want to do a master's. Like, literally, all hell is breaking loose in my house at the moment. So I think the emotional turmoil was quite a big clue that there was something going a little bit awry. I feel like my brain is actually absent without leave at the moment, and it's left behind some absolute gremlins. And I've been doing far too much navel gazing and just asking lots of existential questions, which I don't have the answers to. Extreme nostalgia and lots of sort of reassessing priorities and needing a lot of support and a sudden desire for a brand new hobby, which I can assure you won't happen because I have so much going on in my life and my family will kill me if I get a new hobby. But I feel like I want to start doing puzzles or crochet. And then I think, no, 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 I'm not. I'm not, I don't want to do that. I want to go to a nightclub or something and stay out for a whole week and not come home and just do something really exciting. And I'm not going to be doing that either. So it's been, yeah, it's just a bit of a weird thing. And there was me thinking it was the holiday blues. And then I thought it was my hormones. And now I think, no, I'm just full on having a midlife crisis. And I thought the reason I'm going to talk about it today is because I have been listening back to some of my episodes from this time last year. And I was so naive. And I really didn't have that much to talk about last year because I hadn't done anything. Still managed to. And I know so much more now than I did last year. And it's not yet making it easier. I'm not sort of rolling into year two thinking, wow, I so know what I'm doing. This is going to be an absolute piece of cake this year. I think, if anything, it's made things worse because I just didn't have a clue what I was doing last year. And I've only got slightly less of a clue of what I'm doing this year, to be honest. But I think having a little bit of information sometimes or having a little bit of experience, I'm finding it even more tricky to get myself geared up for this year. And I'm still faffing around with lists and tasks and projects and super projects, which I just can't seem to get away from the lists because I still am struggling to remember things. So I've got to write all these things down. And I've realized that like I could do with a whole team of people. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but the season hasn't even kicked off yet. I've already decided I was going to do a lot of batch cooking. And I did. I batch cooked a whole load of bolognese and then I've eaten it all because I'm so hungry because it's actually quite cold in the evening, or that's my excuse. So I did this fantastic batch cooking and then just did the whole lot. So now I'm still having to make meals, but I could do with a chef, driver, personal assistant. I could really do with a life coach. That would be amazing. Hair and makeup stylist, business manager, you name it. I'm just, for some reason, I'm just finding it catastrophically difficult this year to get off the ground when I compare myself to how I was last year. Now, I think I did say I was planning on redoing my Jenny Marks course. This is the six figure flower farming course I did in November and December last year. And it was all absolutely incredible and quite life changing. And it was amazing. But it was a tight schedule to get it done in the run up to Christmas. And there was a lot going on at that time of year anyway. So I do remember at the time thinking, well, I'll just redo the course in the spring. I'll redo it in February because that's a quiet month and I'll be able to focus on it and go back and just do all of the individual chapters again and go through and remind myself of the goals that I set and the focuses and the priorities and all the things that I was going to do and all the calculations that needed to be made. And I feel like that hard work and the money that I paid for the course is like just slipped through my fingers. Now, it's not too late. The course is there. I've got lifetime access to it, and there is, in their defense, because this is my fault, nothing to do with them at all, there is tons of support, and I could still go to the weekly accountability pods, and I could put messages on the board. And I know that the guys over there, Jenny, are 100% behind us and very supportive. It's just a question of me reaching out, and I don't want to because I feel like I'm in this existential crisis that it's not anything that I could ask them like a sensible question and they would give me the sensible answer. I'm just feeling in a bit of a whirlwind of needing to just get out of my head actually and just get on with stuff. But just having all these, existential crisis thoughts. And the other thing was that I decided last year that I was going to focus more on shrubs and perennials, which is what I did. As you know, I went out and I bought all of these roses and I bought foliage plants from the sale at my garden centre really, really cheaply. And then I bought tiny little perennial plugs, which I've been bringing on since November, October, November, they arrived. And they're now planted out on the plot. And so, I made that decision. I followed through with all of it. And now all I think is everybody's just sowing seeds. Everything I look at, everybody's sowing seeds. And I know I tell you not to compare yourself to what people are doing on Instagram, but it's very difficult because, of course, there are people that I follow. And then, of course, the algorithm throws up all this stuff and it knows that I'm a cut flower grower. So it's just like, oh, you'll want to see this video of somebody really successfully sowing thousands of seeds, but you haven't started yours yet. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, sort of, it wasn't a pivot exactly. I just decided that I really needed to spend less time on the annuals and more time, sorry, and have more time for everything else that I'm trying to do. And the reality is that you just have to start sowing annuals, right? Like, I just don't see how I can step away from it. And I have that clever spreadsheet that I told you about that I've done, which has got all the start dates and everything is done. Like, I have literally done all of the work. And thank goodness I did it before I had this midlife crisis because I wouldn't have got anything done. All I have to do is start putting things into place, like literally book the time in the diary, not get sidelined by anything, and just make a start. But my goodness, am I finding it so difficult? And I'm, one of the things I did on this six figure flower farming course was we had to set a financial goal right at the beginning, like what did we want to achieve? And, people have asked me, well, what is the point of setting a goal? Like, if you don't know how many flowers you're going to grow, you don't know how many you're going to sell, you don't know what the year's going to be like. But the whole thing about the course is you start with your goal and then you have something to aim for. And me being a bit daft, just set a really high figure because I thought, well, I don't want to mess about here. I want to have a successful, thriving business that supports me. So I'm going to set a really big goal. And then everything I've done has fed out from that goal. And that is how many plants I've bought, how many seeds I'm going to start. And in theory, it was all great. But the reality is that my greenhouse is not big enough to start everything in. I can't grow anything up on the plot because somebody will eat it. And the chickens have actually just been through all of my containers and tubs and troughs that are outside the feed room, which I planted up last year with bedding just to make it look a little bit prettier and less um, agriculturally. And they've just gone through all of the compost and just trashed everything and tipped it all out and made a real mess. So literally nothing is sacred up there. If you put anything down for 1 second, somebody will eat it or do a poo on it. So I just thought, oh my goodness, where am I going to put all these annuals? So then I thought, well, no, that's fine because the cold hardy ones will go in first. Then they'll go outside of the greenhouse, and then the half hardies can go in the greenhouse, and then the tenders can go in. Then already I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there is not enough space. There's not enough shelving, not enough tables, not enough. So I've just got into a bit of a whirlwind over that, purely because my numbers are so much larger this year than they were last year. And looking back on it, last year was an absolute doddle. It really was. I literally just went and bought all the seed and just sowed it in absolutely no order whatsoever. Now I'm so fixated on doing things in the right order that I'll be lucky if I manage to open a seed packet and get anything sown at all, to be honest, the way I'm going. So everything was started at the wrong time last year, but it all worked out in the end. Anyway, it really, everything was lovely. Everything that I grew was lovely. So, I mean, there were some obviously issues further on with, keeping things watered and mildew and looking after them and all the rest of it. But germination, absolutely fine. And I had plenty of space. But like I say, with this goal that I've set myself, I'm thinking, I'm not even going to have the space for any of this. And where is it going to go when it goes out on the plot anyway? Anyway, okay, so that's the other thing that's running through my mind. And also the huge volume of digging that I need to do to get 3/4 of bed four sorted. So bed four is like my foliage bed, and I've got my eucalyptus, the rebays, the phytostegia, oh no, physocarpus in there, pittosporum, and then the rest of it is going to be the annuals in order to hit my goal. But the bed has not been weeded, and this is the epic nettle bed. So this is a this bed is a place that I have been digging up and dumping nettles for the last 2 years. And because I didn't want to compost the nettles and I didn't want to set fire to them or anything like that, I used to just dig them up. And then, for the sake of expediency, I would just dump them at the edge of the plot where there is already a sort of perimeter of nettles. And I leave them up because they offer a bit of screening. They're a tiny, tiny little windbreak, and hopefully it would just deter anybody from trying to come through the panels. That's the theory anyway. Um, so I've just been dumping everything that I've dug up nettle wise in this area. And now I've realized, oh my goodness, this is bed four. I suddenly have to clear all these nettles out. And that, I can tell you, is a really daunting thought, because I'm no longer a coffee drinker. So I have to get my energy from somewhere else. And it's just going to be absolutely backbreaking. And it's about maybe 20 meters. So it's 20 meters in length and just over a meter wide. So it's not a tiny space, to be honest. It's quite a lot of work needs doing. And I've also got to get the supports in place for the rows climbers that are going to go up the various sheds. Now, I've worked out who is going to go up what shed, but I need to get the supports in place. And my other half is going to help me put some battens onto the sheds, and then we're going to fix the rebar onto the battens so that the trellis, the rebar stuff that I'm going to use that I got from a skip last year, so that it's not sitting completely flat against these sheds. So it's obviously really difficult to tie stuff on if you just pin things to the wall, which I wish more of my clients knew that. But so that's got to be done. And then this huge volume of marketing that has to be done. Now, this is really massive. And there was a whole module on marketing in my course, and all these different things that one could do. And there was so much to think about that I must say I rushed through that particular module. I remember saying to myself, I will come back to that in the spring. And then look what happens. We're in spring and I haven't done it. And I think once I actually just sit down and start it, it's going to be quite straightforward. And there is going to be quite a bit of it. I think is going to be very seasonally driven. So at certain times of the year, I'm going to be promoting certain things. And I did want to have a plan because I don't want it to be completely ad hoc and just, off the cuff this year, because I don't want to send messages out to florists and then discover that they've already placed an order a week before for events, or that they've gone and bought from somebody else. Or I did want to be organized and have a structure, and also to reduce the amount of decision making that I have to do, because as you can tell from listening to me today, that is not my forte at the moment. So I thought, make the decisions in the winter and then have a plan, and you literally just do what is on the plan. You don't have to think about anything. No more decisions, no more choices, absolutely no thinking, just literally execute the plan. Well, this is the plan I have not yet done. And then somehow I need to find a whole load of confidence in order to execute the plan, because I did my website over Christmas. That was amazing. I don't even know how I managed to do that, because Christmas was like so busy, and I built a whole website. And then I've only told one florist about it, which is my wedding and event florist. I haven't even told the others yet. So I've got to get on with that. And then the other things I've been thinking about is like, what is the weather going to be like this year? Because last year, if you're in the UK, you'll resonate with this. We had heat waves, we had droughts. It was unbelievable. We didn't have rain for about 4, 5 months or something absolutely bonkers, and that created so many issues on the plot, to the extent that I had to go off site and actually bring water in multiple wheelie bins in the back of a transit van onto the site, in order just to keep everything alive. And some things did get sacrificed, but it was really challenging. And there's a part of my brain that says, well, don't think that far ahead. Just deal with what is right in front of you. And if you're screaming at your phone because you're listening to me going, for goodness sake, Lydia, we've no idea what the weather's going to be like, just get on with your seed sowing. I hear you, because the other part of my brain is also saying that as well. But this is the thing, when you start, you don't know all of these things. And then after a season, you're like, oh, but what if we have another drought? What if we have another heat wave? Or what if it rains all summer? So, yeah. And the other question is, are my dahlias even going to come up? I could dig one up, but I'm just a little bit like, when you want to know something really, really badly, but then you don't also at the same time. I'm a little bit like that with the dahlias. And I thought, well, maybe I should just take a punt and dig one of them up and see if it's made it, or see if somebody's eaten all of those as well. And I've also been thinking about when I might actually start selling this year. I was quite late last year, which won't surprise you at all now you know me better. But I was hoping to be a little bit on schedule this year. And then, of course, a third of my tulips have been eaten. And I'm not entirely sure how many I'm going to have left, and whether they're going to be saleable or any good or anything else. Um, so all of that is a little bit of a strange thing. And then, in light of what's happened over the weekend, what's going to happen to the economy, what's going to happen to the inflation rate, and are people going to be suddenly tightening their belts and wanting to save on their wedding and event flowers? Are they going to cut back on luxury items? I mean, we're almost certainly going to have a horrible spike in fuel prices, in gas prices, which will also affect all of the food prices and everything. And so you think, well, what are people going to do in terms of their flowers, which often considered a luxury item, could be somewhere that people will make cost cutting decisions on. So, uh, yeah, we just don't know what's going to happen about that. And I've also been thinking a lot about how much more data I need to collect this year. And you're probably sick and tired of me yapping on about data that needs to be collected. But if I had counted every single stem that I had grown last year, I would feel an awful lot more confident about knowing how many stems I actually produced last year, and therefore how likely is it that I can do something twice as big this year, or 4 times as big this year. I only counted what I actually sold. Big mistake. I should have counted everything, or at least counted all the stems I took off one plant and extrapolated that, or 1 square meter and extrapolated that. Because I feel like I have absolutely no idea what I actually produced last year. And that makes me really, really irritated, because I had plenty of time in order to count, and I just didn't. So, with that cheerful episode, there for you. I'm off to make my own mayonnaise now because I refuse to pay £3 in the shop for a jar of something that is just eggs and oil. So I'm going to go and experiment with making my own mayonnaise. But the chickens have only just started back into lay, like about maybe 4 or 5 days ago. Until then, they had just been guzzling food like it was going out of fashion and not producing anything. Now they finally all started, which is great, including the two baby girls from last year, Kermie and Miss Piggy, who I have renamed Dangerbird because she is still a little bit volatile. Not as bad as Lion, who I have been sweetening Lion up with treats. Lion's my cockerel that was born last year, and he's decided that I'm like a super problem that needs to be kicked every time I go into his enclosure. So I've been going in with little treats for him, mealworms, and then I offer him his dinner before everybody else. Like I thought I'd really got him on side. And then I went up the other day and all of a sudden I felt this massive pain in the back of my leg and he kung fu kicked me. And his only spur managed to go through my jeans and draw blood. So I'm very, very irritated with him because I just, yeah. Anyway, got to sort that out as well. So, like I say, I'm off to make mayonnaise and I'll be back on Friday with another very exciting episode for you, including my plant profile series. And I hope you enjoyed the one last Friday on the hazel. Bit of a twist, not doing an actual flower, but doing foliage instead. But it sold really, really well for me last year, probably because I didn't actually touch it or have anything to do with it. It was just doing its own thing. Anyway, yeah, please come back and join me on Friday. You're always very, very welcome. All the very best.